Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Emma Cownley and today I'm going to be revealing the secrets behind your favourite narratives and characters, why you like them so much, and how you can use these secrets to decode almost any film or TV show that you're watching. You're pretty much going to be able to figure out who they are, what their role is, and how the story's going to play out and what's going to happen. So, if you don't like knowing these things when you sit down to watch a film and you prefer to remain ignorant and to just enjoy the story as it unfolds, switch off now, because once you know this, you're going to see it everywhere. You're going to see it everywhere. You won't be able to help yourself but decode whatever it is you're watching and figure out which role everybody's in and what kind of narrative you're watching. So if you don't like the idea of that, this is not the video for you. But if you're like me and you like to enjoy narratives on a technical level and feel so goddamn smug, carry on watching. In this video I'm going to go over some of the theories proposed by famous theorists like Joseph Campbell, Vladimir Prop, Claude Levi-Strauss and a couple of other ones, Todorov I believe, to really refine down the basic DNA of all of our favourite narratives. I picked this shit up when I was studying at university. I studied grand narratives for a while, and that is looking at religious stories, folklore, things like that, and refining it right down to the DNA of what makes them so important to us. So here's the thing. Many of your favourite films, stories, books, whatever, are all following a very similar narrative structure. They all use character archetypes and they're all categorised within a certain type of narrative. You may be reading the story and feel like it's completely original. It probably isn't. Theorists over time, literary theorists, have actually attempted to figure out and map out the formula of all of these, and it does turn out that the majority of the stories that we love are not cookie cutter, but they follow a similar format. So if you've ever found yourself watching a film and thinking, oh my god, this is just like, I just love this, I don't know why, it's just something about it, it's because it is a familiar story type to you. The narrative is following a very familiar structure and you can instantly connect with it because of this. You've seen the story format repeated so many times that it's one you enjoy and you remember, and that's why you like it. So let's start out with narrative, shall we? So Aristotle proposed that every story needs a beginning, middle and an end. Sounds pretty basic. He was a pretty basic guy. I mean, we're talking about ancient Greek times here, so I mean, cut him a bit of slack, but that was Aristotle's thought on the matter. Years later, a theorist called Todorov went one better and developed a 3-step system for defining stories. He said that the format always follows equilibrium, disruption, and revolution. Within that, you get your hero in their daily lives, life is disrupted and they're dispatched on a mission, and the mission is to achieve an ultimate goal. And on the road they're going to be tested, all of their really heroic qualities will be tested throughout this journey, and at the end they will reach their perfect resolution, which then becomes obviously the new equilibrium. And there you have it. What you would call this in stage or film is the 3 acts of your story: Act 1, Act 2 and Act 3. And as you watch a film you can see the transition between that. You get the normal life, you get being thrown into a crazy adventure, and then at the end everything is resolved and tied up in a neat little bow. Unless you are a modern film and you want a really tasty sexy franchise out of it, in which case you're going to keep giving ambiguous endings because you just want to keep rinsing that narrative for all that it's worth again and again and again until you've got 8 films in a franchise and everybody wants to fucking kill themselves. But we're not here to talk about that today. So the theory gets even better when Claude Levi-Strauss gets involved, because he says that narratives operate with with friction. They need to have some kind of conflict to really make them sexy. Typically, and we'll get to this a bit later, the conflict is between the hero and the villain, or the hero and the false hero and the villain, or even the hero and the princess, you know what I'm saying? There is always going to be a conflict, and this is the theory of the binary opposites as well. Good versus light, nature versus industrialism. You get the picture, man versus woman. Binary opposites create conflict, which creates a really engaging, interesting story. So once you've figured out what the conflicts are, or the archetypes in the narrative you're watching, you can kind of start to figure out where this is going. For example, let's take Aristotle's theory of tragedy. He says that you have your tragic hero, and I'm going to relate this back to what I learned with, which is kind of the Shakespearean tragic heroes. Hamlet, Lear, Macbeth, etc, etc. So Macbeth's tragic flaw is his greed, his lust for power. He just keeps going and going and going, killing and killing and killing until he gets into a position of power, and once he's there he's so freaking paranoid that he just makes it worse for himself. And in the end, the tragic hero usually has to die to atone for everything that they've done on their downward spiral. So if you are watching a classic Aristotelian tragedy, chances are the hero of the piece, who is pretty much usually always some kind of antagonistic villain, will die. Soz. You also typically in those narratives have a cathartic character. Now catharsis, and now we're getting really technical, catharsis is the release of emotion, and it feels good to release that emotion, but at the same time it's usually you're crying your eyes out, but at the end you're like, oh, that was so good, but at the time, you know, you're crying your eyes out. So you need a cathartic character. So in Macbeth, let's say it's Banquo, Macbeth's best mate, who was there when he met the witches and heard the prophecy. Macbeth kills Banquo, and Banquo becomes the tragic hero. In Macbeth, in King Lear, it's his daughter Cordelia becomes, spoilers, Lear's favourite daughter, Cordelia, is murdered, and he is absolutely beside himself, and it's that causes the switch, which causes him to try to redeem himself, and in the end, bosh, he bites the bullet as well. So there you have it. If you're watching a classic Aristotelian tragedy, you can see that in many formats nowadays as well, by the way. It's not limited to Shakespeare. This structure is used typically again and again. So when you can pinpoint who's who, you know they're probably going to die, this person's really important to them, they're probably going to die, X, Y, Z, this person's going to bring about the downfall. You've ruined the film for yourself, but you do feel really clever when you've done it. So now that we've talked about narratives and narrative structures, and you've kind of figured out what you're watching by this point, we're going to talk about character archetypes. There are several different theories of character archetype. These typically come from literary theorists who have analysed the crap out of an entire bibliography of folklore, and they've kind of said, well, these are the characters that pop up again and again and again, so this is my take on it. Today I'm going to be telling you about props theory. Prop says that there are 7 different types of character in your favourite narrative. You have the hero, the false hero, the villain, the princess, the helper, the donor, and the dispatcher. So let's take, for example, Star Wars as a good example of this. Your villain is Darth Vader, your hero is Luke Skywalker, your donor and dispatcher and helper, really, actually no, dispatcher would be R2-D2, wouldn't he? Because he's the one who sends you off on your mission, and the donor helper is Obi-Wan Kenobi. The princess is obviously the princess, and there you have it. You have yourself a tidy little set of character archetypes, and these can come in a lot of different formats. For example, the princess doesn't have to be a woman. The princess can be a guy. The princess Typically she symbolises the ultimate goal, the resolution, the thing that you're trying to rescue or save. So it can be an object, or it can be a career, it can be anything that the hero is striving to get to, or to rescue or to save, is the princess. The villain can also be the hero. You know, it's all messed up, but sometimes there isn't a false hero. Sometimes, in fact, there's always a dispatcher. So that is my really quick breakdown of narrative structure and character archetypes. So you can start to ruin every TV show and film that you see. As I said, there are various other kinds of character archetypes, so depending on who you're studying will depend on the types of characters that they've proposed. For example, it has been proposed by somebody else that a character archetype is the everyman, and you can see the everyman character archetype in Sherlock Holmes or Doctor Who, for example. The everyman represents you, the audience. They follow along with the hero, who is typically a crazy eccentric genius in a completely supernatural world, and the everyman asks questions to the hero, and as the hero explains, you get the exposition, which shows the audience what's what, who's who, what's going on, and explains it to them in layman's terms. So the everyman is another character archetype, which isn't in props theory, but does exist. So depending on how into this you are, you can pop a comment in the description box below and request maybe a different type of video, or ask me a question about it, and I can give you more character archetypes or go into any of this in greater detail. I don't want to keep you sitting here all day, because I could. On this topic, I definitely could. Anybody that knows me knows that I am crazy about films, and often really angry and really stubborn about films, and really dismissive about them, and also just crazy obsessed about them as well. So this is why. This is just the tip of the iceberg. Because I did study narrative and character creation, so it's not uncommon for me to pick things apart as I watch them and ruin them for everyone else. If you have any questions, as I said, about this or anything else, you can pop a comment below, or you can call me out on Twitter at ejcownley, and I'll most certainly help you out, especially if it's about this, because as you can tell, I'm really into it. So off you go, pop a film on, start picking it apart, analyse the crap out of it, and enjoy it on a whole new level. Until next week, take care, over and out.